couldn't get it to fade out today.
I said, all right, we're still going.
I'm still trying to get it to fade out. It wasn't working. Oh, tech
And
happened.
then we're done.
Hello, I
Yes.
didn't give you any warning. All right, we'll see if this gets post
That's a
production.
good shirt. Tech
Everybody
happens.
sees the behind the scenes. Welcome, welcome,
I think we
welcome.
should leave
How are
it.
you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, I am just back from 4 days off. So I am doing ridiculously well. Like there's two
Good.
things I'm holding. I'm holding the fact that,
Mm.
oh my gosh, that was an amazing 4 days. And I don't take near enough time off. Like I really had the realization after this trip that I've really been working nonstop for the 18 months for the whole of the pandemic. And I got on today. It's a little embarrassing to admit, but those of y'all that know me well will not be shocked. I got on to schedule like more time off. And I'm like, booked until November. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a problem. Like, I got to schedule some more rest time in there. So that's how I am. How are you?
Yes. Yes, I hear you. And thinking about the same thing, I've been working on my time management throughout quarantine as well. I think I did a great job at using my time, what, in an effective way. Started a business, started a podcast. We're about to go into the fourth season, and now I'm about to start this position. So we're not going to say what it is yet. I'm going to get settled, and then we'll tell our listeners what's going on. But as I transition the schedule, it's definitely been, looking forward to being able to stay on vacation for however long I want again. That was quarantine. It's not like that in real life, So um, I think that I did a good job at resting. Could have done more, maybe, but we'll do that when it's time to do that. And I look forward to it.
I think it really is the tale of reemerging. Is
Mm,
people are in so many different places as far as did they work the whole pandemic and really need a break? Did they get some rest and are ready to go back to work? I haven't met many people that have been in balance during the pandemic, which
ooh,
is interesting as collectively as we went through this. I know our guest today, she's probably going to know people that have been in balance because this is the work she does in
mm,
the world. But I'm interested to have some more of these conversations about reemerging. I was
yeah,
on LinkedIn today. We were chatting about burnout and we were chatting about what's normal, what's not normal. Because I think a lot of people here in the United States, especially, realize like we don't want to go back to quote unquote normal, and
no,
we need some more rest. But hey, my friend, we should do our intro. We haven't even introed us
we
yet.
should.
Intro. Let's intro.
Let's do that. Yes, of course. Of course. Hi, ladies. My name is Shannon. I am a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shealo Glo LLC, a handmade shea butter company. I'm your advocate for your natural self care and strategic, practical business systems.
Awesome. Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Yes, and together we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And we love to have weekly intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. And we love to bring on really awesome guests to help us talk about it because we have our ideas and our thoughts, and then we bring on these amazing women who are like, whoa, like they also,
Right.
right? So much in alignment with what we're talking about. So today we're talking about environmental wellness. So you want to give our listeners the definition, Shannon?
Yes. Yes, environmental wellness is having good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well being. It promotes interaction with nature and also creating an enjoyable personal environment, both in and out of your workplace.
Right. When you think about environmental wellness, what do you think about, Shannon?
I think about a couple of different, I guess, dimensions of the environment, right? And what I mean by that is sometimes it's sensory. It might be aromatherapy, right? I love candles or incense or really good food, smell good, right? Thank you. So I like a good ambiance. I like aromatherapy. Outside of that, I think about the systems that run that environment. Again, I'm the systems girl, so from being a kitchen manager, I can't help but think about how the bussers affect the host at the host stand. If all the tables are dirty, then we can't see the people at the host stand. And it's the same thing. I can't cook breakfast if all the dishes that I need to cook breakfast are dirty. So it's the way that the systems work together and how well you stay on the systems, So I think about that. I think about aromatherapy and overall organization. In my mind, again, if it's crazy, if I see stuff all over the place, either my thoughts are there already or I feel like they're about to get there. And so I do my best to not let it get too far to the left.
I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you.
And I'm going to say yes to all of that. And I
Mhm.
forget sometimes, like a good example, I was walking up the stairs today and one of my kiddos had something that was smelling really good. I don't know if it was some incense or a candle, but like I got a whiff of it and I was like, oh, that smells great. I love that. But sometimes I get busy and I forget to light a candle. Like that's why I came in and lit this candle today before we started the show because I was like,
Right,
"Oh, that smelled so good. I should light this candle and, have a little ceremony
right,
around our podcast today." The other thing I
yeah.
forget to do often is music. Like, I love music,
Me
and
too.
sometimes I love the quiet too, but sometimes I'm out of balance.
Hmm.
Like, I'll forget to turn on some really good music and how
Yeah,
and then, when I think about environmental wellness, I think about our planet, I think about the earth, I think
right.
about environmental justice. I can't wait to introduce our guest today because she does work with all of this. So are you
Yeah,
ready?
yeah, I'm
I
excited.
get
I am
excited.
ready.
I can't wait for you to introduce our next guest, y'all. So I'm going to jump right to it. Our next guest I met, oh my goodness, maybe either 6 or 8 years ago. I'm losing track of time, y'all. I'm turning into my mother right here on the show right now. At least 6 years ago. Our next guest is a friend and a fellow interplay leader and so much more. I'm going to read her bio so I make sure I get it all right. Kaira Jewel Lingo is a Dharma teacher who has a lifelong interest in blending spiritual and meditation with social justice. Having grown up in an ecumenical Christian community where families practiced a new kind of monasticism and worked with the poor, at the age of 25, she entered a Buddhist monastery in the Plum Village tradition and spent 15 years living as a nun under the guidance of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. She received the lamp transmission from Thich Nhat Hanh and became a Zen teacher in 2007 and is also a teacher in the I'm going to mess this up, Kyra. I'm so sorry. Vipana, Vip, she's going to have to say it when she comes on. Vipassana Insight Lineage through
Is
the
it
Spirit Rock,
Vipassana?
Vipassana, I think that's right. Insight Lineage through the Spirit Rock Meditation Center. Today, she sees her work as a continuation of the engaged Buddhism developed by Thich Nhat Hanh, as well as the work of her parents, inspired by their stories and her dad's work with Martin Luther King Jr. on desegregating the South. In addition to writing We Were Made for These Times, skillfully moving through change, loss, and disruption, she is also the editor of Thich Nhat Hanh's Planting Seeds, Practicing Mindfulness with Children. Now based in New York, she teaches and leads retreats internationally, provides spiritual mentoring, and interweaves art, play, nature, racial, and earth justice and embodied mindfulness practice in her teaching. She especially feels called to share the Dharma with Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as activists, educators, youth, artists, and families. I am so delighted to welcome my friend Kaira Jewel to our podcast. Yay!
Good to be with you both. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we are so
Yes, of course.
excited to see you and be with you today, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. My puppy's crying in the kitchen, so we might hear my puppy. But I had a day at the beach yesterday, and I took a day off. So
Oh,
it was beautiful.
yay. And which
Yes.
beach did you go to?
Good.
It was the Robert Moses Beach on Long Island.
Mm.
Yeah, took a long walk.
Have you been in New York, my friend?
About a year. I moved here just less than a year ago.
Right. And before then, you were in Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in Sri Lanka for 2 years.
So truly an international traveler.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain your wellness when you are traveling? Because I know you do retreats all over the world, you hold space for people. How do you maintain your wellness while you're taking care of other people?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that a lot of the experiences of sharing practice, because for me, practice is a wellness experience when I'm really practicing. So like if I'm teaching, I get a lot of energy, and there's just a lot of happiness from being there with people and listening to like their real concerns, and sometimes like very serious situations that they're trying to navigate, like cancer or, you know, a loss of a significant person. And so, you know, when someone shares like that, or when we're dealing with a situation that's really like kind of, you can't get away from it, you know. I just notice as a teacher or as someone holding space, I come very much into my present moment, my body, my experience. And that's a place where healing happens. So just holding space for others, sharing the teachings is already an experience of wellness for myself, because it's like my heart opens, I'm in touch with compassion, I'm in touch with, you know, like real care. And then of course, though, you know, it's also tiring, especially with traveling in different time zones and adjusting to different weather and food and mattress. And as I get older, I'm like, oh, I need this many pillows to sleep well, you know. And so all those things. Well, one thing that I mean, I haven't been traveling for a while since the pandemic, but before that, I have to excavate the archives to answer this question. You know, it's like arriving a day or two before I have to be on, and having some spaciousness within the schedule, so that if I'm teaching for a 2-hour block, then there's a break, and then teaching, you know, so that it's not like full on the whole day, or, you know, so breaks, pauses, moments to recover. You know, a lot of the teaching I do is team teaching, so I'm not holding space on my own. So it's a team of us, and there's often someone who's teaching yoga. If there's yoga, I try to go to it so that I'm also, you know, nourishing my own body or whatever movement it is. I go for walks, go for hikes, be out in nature. That was one of the things you all mentioned at the beginning. So, you know, and then like during the downtime that I have, not filling it with other work that needs to be done, because then there's like planning that next retreat and getting back to people about, you know, that talk description or whatever. But what I try to do is also really like take naps. I love to do yoga nidra or deep relaxation. So I put on a guided relaxation, usually like in the afternoon for 30 minutes, hour if I have it, and just really let my body rest.
I love that. I love that. And I so needed to hear that today, because I'm out of balance and have been overpacking my schedule. So that word spaciousness really stuck out to me, Kaira Jewel. Now, you are one of the meditation teachers on Insight Timer, right?
Yes, yes. I have a 10-day course and a bunch of meditations and talks.
It is one of my favorite apps, as our listeners know, because when you say that about doing a guided meditation on yoga, I go to Insight Timer. And
Yeah.
I love being able to have my friend in my ear and being able to download your voice.
Oh.
So I'm going to put a link to in our show notes for that, so folks can find you. And you've been doing a lot of work lately around the environment. And will you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I can just say that it's been something that's, been a focus and a area of attention for a long time, that in the monastery. So I was a Buddhist nun for 15 years, and in that context, we were vegetarian, but we switched to being vegan about halfway through that time that I was in the community, with all the information coming out about how, the way animals are raised, how that contributes a huge part to greenhouse gas emissions, and, eggs, milk, cheese, all of that. And so our diet was one way, and I'm not advocating that everyone should be vegan. I think that's a kind of a sensitive thing when so many people in the world don't have access to, many kinds of foods that support them. That I think it's important to be aware of all the complexities that are involved in just people getting enough calories to be healthy and to survive. But if it is something that people can move towards, less meat, less animal products, that is a very significant lifestyle choice that can impact things. And just in general, we lived in community, so we had we shared, we used much less because we had 10 cars for 80 people, and 2 washing machines. We didn't have a dryer. We hung up our clothes to dry, air dry. So we used a lot less, energy in terms of electricity or water per person than when you live on your own. In terms of packaging, we'd buy in bulk. So these are just some things that, and then we really consciously, we would have a no car day. That was something our teacher was we need to just use our cars less. So once a week was a no car day. And that was something that I kind of started a campaign in our whole community worldwide, encouraging people to sign up to not drive their car once a week or once every 2 weeks, but just to really, if you have an electric car, that's a different thing, but, to be aware of how we're polluting the environment. And then we started having no electricity days. So then it was talk about candles, So that's all still happening in the monastery. I left the monastery, and then as I began to teach as a lay teacher, have just, also as a nun was doing, trying to share not just mindfulness with children, but awareness of how we can live, in harmony with the natural world. And that had to do a lot with just taking children and families and teens, doing mindfulness retreats and activities outside. So we would camp. I used to go to Italy every summer. We would lead the Camp of Happiness camp, where we would hike the whole day, take a picnic lunch, do mindfulness activities outside, but talk about how we inter-are with our, the plant species, the animal species, with the earth, and read them stories about animals helping children, helping people, how we as people could protect animals and protect plants, protect the earth. So there was like ecology was woven into all of the mindfulness teaching. And then, yeah, since returning to lay life, it's been joining with people that are doing this work. So I'm a guiding teacher for an organization called the Earth Sangha. It's a Buddhist group that's really trying to bring awareness of the environment to Buddhist communities and help link up the teachings of Buddhism to how we can get involved, why this matters, how we can all become, what we call eco-sattvas. So a sattva is a being. So there's the bodhisattva, the awakened being. That's kind of the aspiration for practice, is to awaken your heart, awaken your mind, so that you really live on behalf of all, looking to protect and support the well-being of all. And so an eco-sattva is someone who has that consciousness of how to protect the planet, protect the earth, protect all species, along with the human species. So it's something I also am really interested in the overlap between racial justice and earth justice, in terms of, you can't talk about how to care for the planet if you don't talk about white supremacy and the way that it's at the root of our whole society. And it's actually a beautiful, you should have Kritee Kanko on your show. She's a wonderful climate scientist from India living in the US and a Zen teacher. But she talks about how white supremacy is the mother of the climate crisis. That it's because we have so distanced ourselves from our deep wisdom of our interbeing by looking at other people as commodities, as things to be exploited. That's the foundation of looking at nature as something to exploit and to use and to basically abuse. And so I think there's a lot, of on both of those fronts. If we really look at healing that trauma of race, then we also really get at the root of why we are behaving like abusive children to Mother Earth. So it's part of what I'm teaching, and it's part of the groups that I focus on now, and kind of the teachings that I give and what I care about.
Oh, Kaira Jewel, thank you so much. Will you say her name again?
Sure. It's Kritee, 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 and then Kanko, Kanko. And her website is boundlessinmotion.org. She teaches at an Eco-Dharma center in Colorado.
Awesome. I will put her in the show notes also.
Yeah.
And also the other places that you mentioned. Now, Shannon, I know you have questions, so I'm going to put myself offline and let you ask some questions.
I mean, I think that, I don't know if I have questions. I feel like I should. I feel like environmental wellness was, when I look at the 8 categories, one that I felt like I had the most shallow understanding of, right? Of how widespread it was, how, usually I think that people might think about being outside. How often do you smell the roses? How often do you, take walks? We talked about hikes, things like that. But how it affects the system, of course, is important. I remember when I was in college, we had a group interview for the RAs, right? It was a huge party that we had. We were going around introducing ourselves and saying an interesting fact. And this gentleman said that it was his first time eating fruit, like the other day, like this week, something like that. And it was crazy, again, because we're in college. But when you talk about food that's available, like you said, there are nutrition deserts, places where people don't have access to food that's going to give you a healthy, balanced diet. That's why we talk about a living wage and all these other things that go into the environmental wellness. So I appreciate you pointing it out. I saw this post online. It said these surges in heat are a crime. I said, you know what? I forgot to think about it like that, but that's true. We can't continue to ignore things and act like no matter what your decision is, it doesn't have ramifications, whether it's positive or negative. and it's hot. So I think we see what is actually happening outside. So
Yeah.
I love what
Mm.
how Kaira put it.
I really appreciate what you're bringing, Shannon, about this is a crime, because I think I just want to be careful when I share about being vegan or making personal choices, not driving your car, or not, if you even have a car, right? Like, let's not assume, but like, no electricity day, those are all things, that are helpful and that we can do. But I was, listening in on conversations where it's also really coming to light how that whole twist on how to be ecological in terms of reducing our consumption has really been a play by oil companies to put the onus on consumers, to say it's your fault that we're in this trouble. But actually it was a very intentional plot to not take responsibility themselves, and that they really are responsible for at least 60-70% of why we're in this situation, and they've hidden it, and they're still trying to hide it. And I just read an email today that said Exxon was basically responsible for killing all the climate change legislation in a recent bill that just got taken out, that was going through. So it's like the ocean is burning. Parts of Canada, just a whole town went up in flames, and we have Democrats and Republicans, but funded and by Exxon saying no, there's no climate crisis. And so, yes, I think it's important for each of us to do everything we can, but we also really need to put the focus on these, few elite billionaires who are basically trashing the whole planet for profit that they're not even going to be able to enjoy if we don't have a habitable planet. So divest
Right.
and everything else.
I'm glad you said that, Kaira Jewel, because I don't think we talk about that enough, about divesting, like about really paying attention to where our money is going and where we're spending it. And I was, recently gifted through an inheritance some small stocks. And the first thing I said because I don't know how to do any of that. I'm learning as we go through financial wellness together. We're having guests on. I'm learning how to do it. But one of the first things I said is, I want to have a meeting with you and look at where that is, because I have definite values that I want to make sure that my values are in alignment with what I own and what I have my money in. And if not, I need to divest and put it into something that I do value. So I have a meeting on the books to look at that.
Great.
And
Great.
I think that that's important, that we pay attention to where we are putting our money. And is it a climate friendly organization? Is it, a BIPOC friendly organization? Is it, because, y'all, I'm originally from Texas. I lived in Houston, Texas before I moved to Atlanta. I was in the heart of the petroleum industry, and we're not kidding when we're talking about who's at the top, and the very selective few white, mostly males that are, and I mean, we had neighborhoods that were infected, and mostly BIPOC neighborhoods, with the pollutants from the petroleum products. And I mean, it's a big deal that, people don't want to talk about. And in fact, I mean, I remember, I don't know if y'all are old enough to remember, y'all remember when Oprah got sued by the cattle industry because she started talking about this? And the cattle industry went after Oprah for even talking about eating less meat. And so it is very definitely systemic, that it's systemic about keeping this profit going.
Yeah. And what's so interesting? I really understand where you're coming from, Kyra, when you say this is a personal decision. I'm not saying because this is what I did, you have to do that. But I definitely lost 40 pounds doing first the Daniel's fast and then vegan, making sure I drank water, of course. And sometimes people at work would say, after I stopped, right? 'Cause I didn't say I was going to do a whole lifetime. Okay. I said I was going to do a certain part. So I go to work and people be like, I thought you were vegan. Why are you worried about what I'm eating? I'm still healthy. This is what I decided to do right now. But I think that with the different parts of this conversation that we're having, it's very sensitive the balance that we put on certain parts of the situation, right? It's not that um, somebody can't be a billionaire, but when you're a billionaire and we're not running the company in a environmentally healthy way. So we're destroying ecosystems and we're having people in certain families and BIPOC families specifically developing illnesses over generations and pregnant women, elders, and children playing in playgrounds. Now that's the conversation that we're having. I want to be a billionaire by helping people take care of themselves every day. That's it's different and not in a judgmental way but in a communal way. And when we're talking about social wellness, we have to think about things in all the different categories that they affect not only us, but also the environment and the community for our generation and the next three, really, is what we should be thinking about at least. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's a really powerful image. I read what is like you're in the penthouse and you're building, up your place at the penthouse, but the way you're doing it is by taking the bricks from the foundation of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So any of us that's
Mm-hmm.
just trying to get ours, that's the metaphor, is like we're taking from the base that's holding us up whenever we do
Right.
that. But it's very possible to still take good care of ourselves and those we love and be reinforcing the foundation for everybody,
Absolutely.
And I like
Absolutely.
that you
And
shared it like that.
thank you.
Well, and
And
I
that's
love
what I
what
think
you
about
said.
too.
Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
Right. No, go ahead, Christine. It's okay.
I was just that intersection of social justice and environmental wellness and how
Mhm.
important that is that we talk about it. And I love the way you say that, Kaira Jewel, about like we can't make assumptions that somebody has this food to eat or this car or you know
Mhm.
and often so much this country was built on the labor of slaves and what impact that's had for generations on their families. And yeah, it's so important that we're having these conversations.
Yeah. And with all of it and the way that we are even on this podcast, right, Christine, very intentional about how we position wellness. It could feel overwhelming. It's a lot of categories. There's a lot of stuff that we have to fix, right? So, like we asked Kyra throughout the day, when you're doing all this stuff for everybody else, how do you take care of yourself? Is breaks. To me, I love how you said taking the bricks from the bottom and putting them at the top. That's how we do our self care. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're taking the bricks from the foundation and giving it to everybody else. So, with our schedules, with environmental wellness, not as far as nature, but as far as the spaces that we occupy at home while we're working at home or at work while we're at our jobs, I definitely think about the breaks in between. Before Corona, if you're on a shift, you have that shift. And especially at a restaurant, you might not get to eat, or you might not get to eat at the time that you thought you were going to eat. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I stepped down from a kitchen manager position, understanding the demand that was expected to a server, I said, you know what, I'm going to be intentional about at least drinking some water. And my friend Marie and I, we would have water breaks together and make sure that
Nice.
throughout, okay, before you leave your shift, not 8 cups, it's not the whole day, but you could do 4,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? You make sure all these other people get their drinks, you can do 4 cups of water.
That's
So
great.
there's definitely things to be Yes, thank you. It definitely helped. And
Mm-hmm.
there's things to be addressed. I appreciate us for starting the conversation. And that's why Women Connected in Wisdom is so important. Because if we're going to build the the system for everybody to be fed, if we're going to talk about huge government agencies and different companies, there has to be a structure to replace it. And what is that going to look like in a healthy way? You
Yeah,
know, a
we
lot of
have to be.
times, just like Christine said, people talk about slavery and what it was built on, and it seems like that sentence could minimize it. But now, as a business owner, right, it's Women Connected in Wisdom. Most of us are business owners. We understand that cost of labor is the majority of your expenses. So if you're cutting out the majority of your expenses, then that means your profit margins are exactly where you want them to be with all the money. And then if you get a tax write-off for the supplies that you use, you literally built it for no cost to yourself and you got money back because that's what the government needs. We need jobs, right? We need people to do, we need farmers, we need these things. But then when you strategically make it a certain group of people, you're taking the bricks from the bottom of the foundation of the country and putting it at the top. And that's what we're looking at right now with the way that things are. So I love Women Connected because you
Mm.
know how women who are wise, how we, you know, do things in a healthy way and start connecting things in different ways that they have been before so they can be healthier.
Mm. I love how you tied all those different levels and ideas together. That was beautiful. I just want to say, really, what we're talking about, what you said so beautifully is, you know, the ends never justify the means. That if we want a world that looks a certain way, we have to be living it now. So this activist, pacifist, A.J. Muste is famous for saying, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. So if we want a world that's in balance, we need to be in balance. So all the things you mentioned, drinking water, making sure we get rest, taking care of our own emotional needs, you know, taking a break, how we do it is as important as what we're doing. And so, you know, I made sure for the next year, I put all my vacations in first. I put the time I'm taking off before I let my schedule get super full, you know, and like we're blocking out, my partner and I blocking out when we meditate in the morning, in the evening, you know, taking off, you know, like one day a month for quiet, a weekend, a quarter for a retreat, you know, so like we're trying to really have this rhythm of pausing and in many different ways pausing, you know, because this was someone who said this. I was in a group I was mentoring. She said, when I get really busy, I just start automatically adding more things to my already busy list. I'm already overwhelmed and I'm suddenly taking on more things. I'm like, it's like a snowball that's rolling more and more things. And so if you don't put in the pauses, then you're going so fast that you don't even realize you're actually adding to it, and you don't have to be, but you can't. It's like when you're so tired you can't sleep, that thing, you're up late at night and you know you just need to go to bed, but because you're so tired you can't actually just put yourself to bed. And so the way we do things is so crucial. And so you know, the other piece about race in our country is you know, what you said was so well put, Shannon, about, you know, slavery and just how that system allowed directly, you know, people can directly look back and see, because this person enslaved this person, they were able to become a millionaire within, you know, 1 or 2 generations because of this many people that they, you know, enslaved. And looking at, I think part of why we see all these, again, mostly white men in these mass shootings so much alienation, so much social breakdown, it's because the end of slavery was, make as much money whatever it takes, and that's still our way of doing things. Make as much money whatever it takes in terms of corporations and greed and the way we use the earth, the way we interfere with other people's democratically elected governments to support dictatorships so we can make more money. I mean, this whole immigration refugee crisis is directly, in Latin America, directly related to the US's, disturbing countries and their ability to care for themselves. But, we are sick. Our society is very sick, in the US especially so. And that's, to me, it's an intergenerational trauma that has affected everyone, white, Black, every other group of folks of color, Latinx, Asian, Indigenous. It's like a virus. We have multiple pandemics happening at the same time. And this book of Heather McGhee, The Sum of Us, she goes around interviewing and talking to everyone. Basically, it's about how racism hurts white people as much as anyone else. And the metaphor she uses is in the South, where they wanted to resist integration. So they, instead of integrating all the pools, they closed them all. They filled them in with concrete and made them into parks. So there's so many places in the South where nobody can swim. So all the white people lost out on pools and summertime, and, as well as, the Black folks, the BIPOC folks. So this, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. We all lose out if we don't, look at how to make what we're doing now be the model of what we want to come. And we have to live that individually, but also in our relationships, in our communities, in our companies. This whole thing with how we can share, we can think of economic models very differently. I heard about, I don't even know who it is, but somebody just made a wonderful film, a Black woman and I think it won a bunch of awards. Maybe you know who it is, one of you, but she was the first person I heard to make her everyone who participated in making that film got equity in the film. Usually people are just paid a fee, and then the star or the producer, whoever makes the most money off of everyone got equity in the film. So whatever happens to that film, everyone benefits. Whether you were, behind the lights or bringing, tea to the actors, so there's just these, we can change the way we do things, and it has a huge effect.
Kaira Jewel, are you talking about Zendaya and the new film Malcolm and Marie? Is that the one, or is it a different one?
I think her name was Tiffany,
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
This is, when I Googled it, Zendaya is a 24-year-old actor and producer who did the same thing. So
did it say that? Did it say everyone got equity? Oh, then it must be her. It must be her.
Said Zendaya made sure everyone involved in the making of her upcoming film, Malcolm and Marie, had the opportunity to own shares that would provide a bonus payday.
That must be it. Beautiful.
And it's earning major Academy Award buzz, and was made with a skeleton crew during quarantine.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'll put a link to the article in our show notes.
24. And,
right? Well, that's the other thing.
So visionary.
Is, you look at the youth about, I think about Greta, is it Thunberg?
Thunberg.
That's how you say her name. Thank you for correcting me. You look at our youth are like we have to do something now. And like this young 24-year-old saying, there's new ways to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it behooves us all to listen, you know. I think we have to listen to both. We have to listen to our elders who came before and what worked and what didn't work, so history doesn't repeat itself, and then listen to our youth who are seeing it with fresh vision and eyes.
Yeah.
Y'all, this has been such a good conversation, and I'm paying attention to time. So Shannon, I'm going to pass to you for one last question or anything you want to say before we start to wrap.
Ooh, what do I want to wrap it up with? There's so much good stuff. I feel like if I wrap with this, is going to be the start of another conversation. So I will end it with Kaira. Thank you so much for being an amazing guest. I think that your story about being a Buddhist nun for 15 years, your travels around the world, the work that you're doing with the environment, with mindfulness. I think mindfulness is so important. I really appreciate it for you making our world a better place and for coming on the show to share your wisdom.
We should ask Kaira Jewel her wisdom in action before we put her back in the green room. So Kaira Jewel, we every week we do a hashtag wisdom in action, like that we ask our readers to like, what's your one action item that you're going to take from today's show around environmental wellness? So Shannon, you want to give one while Kaira's thinking?
Ooh, yes. My environmental wellness is the aromatherapy I was talking about earlier. Why candles run out so fast? I feel like my smell good stuff is always gone. So I need that in my life. So getting that. And I'm also going to do a second one and take Kaira Jewel's step in planning out the trips. Where are you going to, that around this time you're going to do this. I have the opportunity to do that and I'm going to take it. So I'm going to do that.
Beautiful. I think walking outside, if you can, if there's a place that nourishes you, and I'll just share from what I'm doing. Just recently, I planted my first garden, and even if it's an indoor herbal garden or whatever, but get your hands in the dirt, grow your food, however, in whatever way you can.
Oh, I love that, y'all. I think I'm going to do two too, since we're doubling up today. I love it. I am definitely listening to you today, Kaira Jewel, and I am going into my calendar and scheduling some rest times and vacation because I am definitely out of balance with that. And my second thing is I'm going to look at what is currently being proposed in the legislature around environmental justice and see what I need to get behind and contact my legislatures on. So to see where we can put our voice. And so those are my two for today. Thank you so much, my friend, for coming on and having this conversation and just for who you are and the work you do in this world. I am so very grateful to know you and appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm so grateful to you and Shannon for this wonderful work you're doing with women in wisdom and connected in wisdom. Thank you.
Well, we are going to put all the way people can contact you in our show notes so they can reach out to you and see your workshops. Kaira Jewel has some amazing workshops coming up and as always has retreats that I have not gotten to go yet and I need to schedule one because I always see them like, I should do that. And yeah, I've got to get better about scheduling these things. So thank you so much. We will hopefully talk to you soon, my friend.
Yes.
What a powerful conversation. I am so grateful. What was the thing that stood out to you the most, my friend?
So there was two things. Well, that's not true. There's a list of things, but I will give you two. Um, One, even though I do this, we need to reiterate stuff sometimes. And it is put in the pauses. Put in the
Right.
pauses. I love
Uh,
alliteration and just remembering that because we're good to put in the work. We're going to do the work. We know we know, but to put in the pauses, um, I think is definitely something that I'm going to hold on to. And the second thing is, I remember one day we were at McDonald's. We used to eat at McDonald's a lot when I was growing up. And I said, Dad, today in school, I learned that slavery wasn't that bad. And he was like, absolutely not. Absolutely. What were y'all talking about in school? Right. And that's a moment that I thought about when she said that the white pain was the same as it was equal to the black pain. Right. And not that I've claimed victimization at all, because I'm not a victim and I choose not to live that way. But we have to be realistic with the situation and what's happened. A lot of times you and I talk about things like, oh, we should have switched this or we should have said that. I thought about it. So I just wanted to say it that, of course, I check on white people and white men just like I check, well, not as much actually as I check on my black men, but I am intentional about remembering that it hurts to be in a certain position, even if that position I'm never going to occupy. And I can definitely see that pain and the different things that can happen because of the position. But I would still say that it's exponentially affected in different ways, of course, to the people who were slaves. But it's a new generation. We're connected in wisdom now, and I am hopeful for the future.
well, and I think about in that when you talk about that, I think about Resmaa Menakem's work, and he's the
Mm,
author of My Grandmother's Hands, and he
mm,
talks about racial trauma being passed down in bodies, and he talks about the same thing in white bodies, and of course it's different,
of
right?
course.
It is different,
Right.
but everybody needs to look at their heritage and what is that trauma that's in your family, and is it acknowledged, and
Hmm.
and to heal, and the first thing to healing is acknowledging it. So if your ancestors, not
Right.
yours, if my ancestors, let me get the right word down there,
Right.
were slave
Maybe
owners,
mine. I need to
then
do a DNA test. Right.
we need to look and see in order to acknowledge it and to heal it, because us pretending like it
Hmm.
didn't exist, like this, this new controversy that's come up about them trying to legislate not teaching critical race theory in schools. Like that is the most white supremacist
Mm.
thing I've ever heard. How do we know it's a white dominant culture? We're making laws to not talk about actual history and and people
Right.
don't even understand what critical race theory is. So I'm going to put a link to that in our show notes.
Mm.
We could have a whole nother show just on that. But it makes me,
Right.
I loved the tie to environmental justice and racial justice and how
Yes.
crucial that is. And I've been hearing a few people talk about that, but I think it's vital that we have more conversations about it and how it impacts
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to get out of here without mentioning our awesome sponsor and talking about what you've been up to. So,
Yes.
would you give us a little shout out for Shealo Glo?
Absolutely. So we're going to do it a little different today. And what I will say to the quote of what you just said, Christine, that I love that I've been seeing online is if trauma can be passed down, so can healing. Right. So we're talking about it, we're getting well. And that is what Shealo Glo is all about. So I realized I don't usually show you ladies the products, but this is what your Shayro has the opportunity to get. So again, let me see if I can face it the right
You can
way.
describe it for our listeners who are listening and maybe not watching.
Of course. Of course, I will. So what we have here is our bundle, right? The way you use this, first you start off with the dark brown sugar scrub. That's for exfoliation. If you're moisturizing your skin and you're not taking the dead skin cells off, you're moisturizing over dead skin cells, right? So you want to do that not only to exfoliate, but it also helps with your texture. It helps with the tone of your skin, the shade of your skin, making sure that it's even. Then you are going to re-moisturize your moisture barrier with the Glisten and Glow oil. You can use this throughout the day. and then we seal it in with the multi-use butter. This is the shea butter that is the foundation of the company. And this is what your Shearo has the option to get when she is nominated. So the last 2 shows, we've been talking about Shearos. If you have somebody in your life that you love, you care for, they make a difference, not only for you, but also your community, and you know that they need to take even better care of themselves, I will gift them Shealo Glo, and I want to give them something that they specifically need. So I'll get in contact with them and let them choose. And you do that by emailing my Shearo to shealoglo@gmail.com. And I will pick the new Shearo at the end of the month. So July's nominations are open right now.
Oh, I love it. And our last episode and our guest, Shannon Ivy from the What She Said Project, was June's Shearo. So that's so,
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And I hope our listeners nominate folks, because the other thing that's so fun about that is learning about these amazing women, like learning what they're doing in our communities. And I am, you know, best job in the world, Shannon, that we get to meet and talk with. And like, I'm excited for season 4. Like next week, we are wrapping season 3. We're having a wrap-up show for season 3. And then y'all stay tuned for what's coming up in season 4. We've been interviewing some amazing women, and it is going to be, it's going to be popping. It's going to be exciting.
Yes. Yes. Okay, ladies. Well, thank you so much again, as always, for tuning in, listening in. We will see you here next week, Wednesday at 5. And in the meantime, be well, be wise, and be whole. Bye.
Until next time.